Welcome to another vodcast episode of Don't Worry About the Government. I'm always Ronnie Weiss, and over with me today I have the Liberal-tarian. Hi.
I discovered on the Twitters that Liberal-tarian's like an unused hashtag. So finding anything
Okay, that's a big shock. What do you mean you discovered that people don't use something that doesn't really make sense?
Well, you know what? I try to
There are a
make
lot of
words.
not unused hashtags, like cow douche.
Well, yeah, but cow douche isn't a political affiliation yet.
Is liberal-tarian actually something people describe themselves as?
Yeah, okay, in the mid and early 2000s, there's actually a spat of libertarian, what was being called as libertarian writers. A lot of them got flushed from Cato. So most notably, you have Brink Lindsay, and Will Wilkeson, who I read fairly heavily.
This is purely a segue and don't actually answer the question, but what would they think of this billboard in Idaho that people in the media keep seemingly represent as being in Colorado, at least in an implicit way? But as far as I can tell, it's in Idaho, with the Colorado shooter on the left, and it says, kills 12 in movie theater with assault rifle, everyone freaks out, underneath in meme style, and on the right, kills thousands with his foreign policy, smiling picture of Obama, then wins Nobel Peace Prize. So I think that the question is, what's the deal with this?
I'm glad you highlighted the meme style thing because I think that was the mistake. I mean, there's a couple of mistakes in this billboard. I mean, one, the war against statism stuff, I don't know, it's a bit much. This isn't really about statism. But when you go, everyone freaks out. That's what you diminish Aurora to. A freak out session? No, it's a national fucking tragedy. 12 were shot dead in a movie theater, and another 50-something were wounded. It's a little bit more than a freak out.
No,
freak
but I
out's
think
what happens when you take bath
That's
salts.
the point. If we're supposed to care about human life, then why? I mean, it is a freak out. People are freaking out. They're freaking out because it's a tragedy. Fine. But we are killing people over in Central Asia all the time and in the Middle East all the time. Nobody is reacting, freaking out, whatever. I mean, that's the point. Like, this is a freak out because people go, oh, this could be me. It's a freak out because these are not people we're connected to. But somehow they're Americans and then it matters. But it doesn't matter if we're killing people in drone strikes. I find this to be a reasonable argument.
Me too. And you know what I find completely unreasonable is stuff like this democratic communication.
Reasonable. Okay, you're countering. Okay, got it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying what I find is unreasonable is this thing that Democratic Party Communication Director Judy Farrow says, which is, quote, there's no factual basis to it at all. It's just offensive. That's bullshit. Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize. Obama is doing drone strikes on U.S. citizens, but just randomly and cavalierly on anyone we deem as militants in
there's nothing inaccurate about this. You can take exception with the framing. You can take exception with the terminology. But 12 people were killed. People are freaking out. Obama is killing thousands with his foreign policy. And you could say, what's the cause of that or whatever else? But that's a fact. And he won a Nobel Peace Prize. There is nothing factually inaccurate about this. The only thing you can take exception with is framing and terminology. And if you really want timing as well.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a quote from the opening of A Portrait of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. He wrote this introduction, and what he said. I know, I'm getting very erudite, aren't I? No, but what he referred to is
that wasn't
Callaghan's.
Ballsy. That was a swirling of cognac, for the record.
Oh, okay, I see. Yes. What he said is it's like Callaghan seeing himself in the glass, which is to say it's like a monster seeing itself, its reflection, and we can't even process it. So then you have Democrats going, oh, there's no factual basis to this at all. This isn't true. This is unfair. These guys are nuts. Now, what I would like to say to the libertarian movement is that framing arguments like this and doing stuff like this doesn't help. When you diminish a national tragedy to a freakout, I mean, regardless of is it fair to say we don't handle and process human life appropriately? Absolutely. And insofar we're not doing that in a natural way, we are freaking out. We don't have a normal way of dealing with it, so everything's a freak incident. It just looks terrible when we seem callous.
It got news coverage. And it got me thinking.
It makes libertarians look like assholes, man. It makes us look like principal douchers who don't fucking appreciate reality.
That's fair. But I mean, as a purely objective sort of taking two things and putting them together and removing the human emotion, and maybe that's the problem.
Totally
and maybe
true.
I do that too easily. But I find this to be a reasonable comparison, and I think people give way too much of a crap about things like this. And then also it's the freak out part of it too, in that, oh my God, now I could maybe get shot in a movie theater. You can get hit by a car walking down the street, and the chances of that are probably more likely. So it's funny to me, the way people process this, I think, is stupid. And I think that there are problems with it. But if that doesn't work with how people react, then what have you really accomplished? I think is partially your point.
Yeah, well, look at the way the headlines are framed. They're saying that this billboard's comparing Obama to the Colorado shooter, which is not what it's doing. It's comparing.
I mean, you put face to face. You say this person does this. I mean, in a strict sort of sense, they are comparing it. But
sure.
I mean, it's.
But the actor, honestly, no, dude. The actor at the bottom on the second part of the meme is not the person pictured. It's the public. I mean, that's what's being lost here is the acting verb in the second line.
That's a really good point. It really is, because that's the thing. It's not Obama does this, Obama goes to hell or anything. It's nothing that has to do with him. It's not about anything. It's about the reaction. No, you're entirely right.
How we process it.
Yeah, and that's the point. Yeah, and it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, my issue's not with the argument at all. It's with that one line of everyone freaks out. And it's really just more the libertarian movement's fighting uphill.
I think that is what it is, because I don't see the difference. I honestly don't see the difference. Somebody gets shot in a movie theater by a crazy guy in Colorado. You could attribute it to lack of gun control. You could attribute it to whatever things. You could decide the guy is evil as opposed to crazy or whatever else. That's one thing. But I mean, there's people dying in one situation. There's people dying in the other situation. They're both dead, and yet we care about one, and we go, oh, my God, it's a tragedy. And yet somehow the drone strikes, we go, they're across the world, and they're probably terrorists. I don't see this as unreasonable.
No, I just think dude, honestly, we're arguing about an inch here. I'm just saying national tragedy is a slightly more nuanced and a little bit more effective.
I think what you're talking about is the key to the problem of this. The fact that it's a national tragedy as opposed to a human tragedy is really the problem with what's going on here.
It's the Stalin line, to go back to my Russian shirt here, of one death is a tragedy and 1,000 deaths is a statistic.
All right, so you think about statistics, numbers, and death. We are Don't Worry About the Government. You could find us on iTunes in our audio version. We are at don'tworry.tv. We have a new Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/DWATG. Libertarian?
Hey, you can go to #libertarian. I occasionally look at that, but you can also follow me on Twitter. Like intermittently, because once I realized that the only thing there, I was like, fuck it, it's my home. I'm going to make it mine.
You should. Why not?
Why not, right? Reddit.com/r/DWATG, at DWATG on Twitter, and at Chris, ChrisNovembrino on the Twitter. And also, dude, check out our Bruce Carlson episode that we just released on iTunes. We interviewed the host of My History Can Beat Up Your Politics.
Let us know below if we're total schmucks. I mean, should we care about people more than we do? Or me specifically, I guess, in this case. Your comments are appreciated. Thanks and bye-bye.
I want to give the world a hug.
Ugh.